only 35 Class 06 shunters were ever built, and they spent all of their very short lives of between 9 and 23 years working in Scotland, so it was perhaps surprising that Hornby chose to make a model of one. They had had a generic 040 shunter in their range from 1967, but this more accurate model first saw the light of day 20 years later in 1987. This later model had perhaps two major problems. The gearing was ridiculous, meaning it could almost make warp speed, and the body was stretched to fit the existing chassis. It looks a little long, but more importantly, the bonnet is far too wide. However, I thought the model looked rather cute, and I decided to try some modifications to see if I could turn what is basically a toy into a reasonable looking model. The model has appeared in a bewildering variety of liveries over the years, most of them unprototypical, but the BR green and blue liveries look good, and I purchased a green one. The first stage in improving the Hornby model is to separate the body from the chassis. The cab is removed first and is held onto the chassis by 4 plastic lugs. These must be gently pushed from the underside using a small screwdriver or similar tool. They're very fragile and easily damaged, so take care. Once the cab is removed, the bonnet just lifts off. The 06 chassis is short, and my layout has small radius insel frog points. I like slow running, and although the model picks up current from all 4 wheels, there was inevitably some hesitancy going over the dead frogs. Also, my layout has sharp, radius 1, curves, and I found that the locos started slipping on these curves when hauling 7 or 8 wagons. The solution to both these problems was to add some weight to the chassis. I had some small pieces of lead sheet to hand, so this was glued on. It's not an elegant solution, but it works. Once I was happy with the running of the loco, it was time to weather it to simulate a hard-worked and rather neglected shunter. The running plate, wheels, connecting rods and steps were stippled with my favourite underframe grime colour. Before everything was dry, I checked that the wheels still turned properly once power was applied. The steps and brake fittings were gently dry brushed with a rust colour, although this doesn't show up too well in the photos. The buffer beams were treated to a dilute wash of my underframe grime colour, and then when this was dry, most of it was removed with a cotton bud slightly moistened with thinners. The buffer beams still looked too shiny at this stage, so the process was repeated until I was happy with the result. The body and cab were vertically dry brushed with a slightly browner version of my underframe grime colour. The front lamp was painted a greyish white and then weathered as the buffer beams. The vacuum pipes and horns were similarly treated. The roof was airbrushed with the same grime colour as the chassis, as I thought the Hornby original looked too light and certainly too clean. The fuel tank, the large lump in front of the cab, was first dry brushed in a dark grime, and then the fuel filler cap and surrounding areas were dry brushed and then airbrushed in an almost black colour to simulate fuel spillage. The whole of the body and cab were then given a light airbrushing of grime to tone everything together. The Hornby model as supplied has a one-piece block of glazing which fits inside the cab. This makes the windows look too recessed, so I thought I would flush glaze them. The flush glaze kit I purchased contained no fewer than 44 windows. The 06 only has 11, so I have enough left over for another 3 shunters. Oh good. The glazing fitted well and improves the look of the cab no end. The model was reassembled, ready for the official desk photos, and I reckon she looks good. And now some shots of her on the layout. And there we have it. Some simple and quick modifications to turn what is basically a toy into a half-decent model. And finally, some shots of the Shunter running on my layout pastiche. Did I say toy a little while ago? It may not be a scale model, but boy does it run superbly. The loco is operating on straight 12 volt DC, no DCC here, and is running slowly and smoothly. My short radius insel frog points are not as level as they could be, and the frogs are rather worn, but the loco negotiates them without hesitation even at this low speed. The extra weight I added certainly seems to help. I have to say, I rather like this little loco. It has certainly repaid the small amount of effort I put in to improve it. I also mentioned earlier in the video that I have enough spare glazing for another 3 shunters. Now I've seen this one running, I could well be tempted. But for now, that's all. See you next time.